Welcome to another episode of the Most Serious Podcast. And today I have an art therapy practitioner with me. That's the first time I've heard of it, and I would want to know more about it. Definitely sounds like an interesting thing. But welcome, Sanjivani. Thanks for doing this episode. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Can you just start with what is art therapy and what are those two drawings or pieces of art that I'm able to see behind you?
Yes, definitely. So art therapy is basically there are a lot of myths and misconceptions regarding art therapy. Like it's just drawing, you just have to sit and draw and all those things. But that's not it. Art therapy is much more than just sitting down and drawing. There's so much self-reflection that comes in when you are in the process. You are sitting with a expert and they are guiding you in the way, and you are making art, and the whole journey that is there between the beginning and the output is the real therapy. It's not the output, it's not about how the output is going to turn out, but it's about the journey that has taken place and what you have received from that journey. It is also very one way to explain it why art really works is when we talk about language or when we talk about wordings in a therapy setting, we lack words. Sometimes we want to express something, sometimes we want to but we are not able to explain that with words. We just go around, I know there's something, but I don't know how to explain it to you. And I think art therapy comes very beautifully in that particular aspect. Mm, this is just a basic information. So about the art pieces, okay, I'll just show it to you guys as well. So this one is very special to me because when I was doing my bachelor's, and I had a really good friend, and I did art from the seventh age of 7. So we decided to sit together and make one canvases for each other. And she created this one for me, I created one for her, and now we are apart in different spaces. So we have this as a token of love for each other. The second one is a very recent one and a very big achievement, I would say, for me, because I did a meetup, psychology based meetup, and there were students from psychology and out of psychology as well. And we were just in a cafe, we were having discussion, and I made sure that the whole meetup was art based, because that is the essence that describes Sanjeevani, to be honest.
Yeah.
And this is a little token that I wanted to take away. I just told everyone to put in their fingerprints and let's do something creative out of it. And I named the meetup Canvas and Cognition. So that is from where it is. So yes.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Don't you think like I for one would definitely have something like art therapy. Try to get it into curriculum, school curriculums, and something like that. Because I think traditional art, so like it adds a different flavor to how we know like normal traditional drawing periods or art periods in school. I think you should work around trying to get this inculcated into some curriculums. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. I think so you said, in schools we have those traditional art classes. From where I can remember, the art classes that I had in my time were, there was a cube that my sir would draw on a board, and he was like, just copy the cube. And I think it was very boring, I would say, for me as a person who loves art. That was not the most favorite thing. I know it is a basic, but that's not the most favorite thing for me. I think other than art therapy, there is one thing called therapeutic art making. That is where you don't need an expert with you, but you need a space where you are just sitting together with yourself, in a space where you're feeling safe, calmed, and relaxed, and you just sit and work on some prompts. Okay. So, for example, a very interesting prompt that will give you a very good reflection would be to just draw a tree. On the roots of the tree, just sit down together and think about the things you are, okay, something that you have achieved in your life. And this is a good positive kind of reflection that I'm talking about. So just draw a tree and put in the roots of the tree whatever you have learned, your experiences, your achievements. For example, I studied this, or I am good at dancing, I love cooking, something like that. And on the upper part of the tree, you can create leaves, and you can put in the leaves things you want to learn in future. So it gives a person a lot of clarity about, okay, I have done things in life and I have certain plans for myself as well. And it can be a very good therapeutic prompt for you to boost your feelings and boost your self esteem as well. So these kind of things, I think, if are done in school curriculum where we are doing all these things with kids,
Yeah.
because the kids engage really well with the art. So I think it can be a very big game changer, and it can really help a person have a better self-esteem within themselves. So yeah, that is a great thing.
What are your thoughts on so I just want to understand this from a person who studied
Hmm.
psychology, like literally, that what do
Hmm.
you even mean when you say therapy? Like, what does therapy mean?
Okay. uh Therapy also, there are so many misconceptions about therapy also, what therapy is and everything. Therapy is just not about talking. Okay, when a person is coming to a therapist and sitting with the therapist, they are not just not venting out. Venting out is a part of therapy, but it is not the only thing that is included in therapy. You are coming in with your concerns, or even if you don't have your concerns, then also therapy can give you a lot of perspective in your life. So that is one thing. You are just coming in, you are sitting with your therapist, you are discussing some goals you want out of therapy, and then there comes discussion about how things are in your life and all those aspects. So therapy gives you a very good new perspective, a bird eye perspective about things as well. Because whenever you see, I may be aware about things I'm good at, I may be aware about things that I'm not good at,
Yeah.
but hearing that, or being getting to know about those things from a third person can give you a better perspective, to be honest. Because I think learning about yourself is a journey. You can know better about the other person, but knowing better about you can be very very difficult, but very very crucial at the same time. So that is one thing. And in therapy you will get to discuss the goals, you will get to learn about different techniques that you can take away from therapy in your personal life and use it in future as well. Because therapy will not be there for the whole life period, so you will be learning those skills for yourself. And therapy will give you a very good introspection about how, what is your defense mechanism, how you are working in
Hmm.
your life, what are your
Yeah.
coping skills in certain situations, and how those coping skills are either healthy or unhealthy. If I'm talking about anger, if a person is angry, he or she may just punch the wall. That
Yeah.
is very unhealthy, you are hurting yourself. And rather than that, a very good a very good mechanism that I personally use is take a piece of paper and crumble it till the time my anger is out. So I'm not hurting anyone, I'm not hurting myself as well, and I'm letting out my emotion in the same way as well. So therapy will give you a lot of different perspectives. So this is something that I learned while I was in therapy, so I
Hmm.
am taking it with me till now as well. So it gives you a lot of different perspective, and it helps you in learning a lot of different skill sets that you can use in your daily life and work well as well. So yeah.
So Sanjeevni, I would want to ask you this question that is therapy essentially just a good is a therapist just a good listener, or are they just good? So what does a psychologist essentially do right that a normal person doesn't? So what is the difference between a person who's, let's say me, who hasn't studied psychology ever and who's just going about their life, versus a person who's done psychology and who would, having while having a conversation, have that insight into how this person is behaving or how is their defense mechanism acting? So,
Hmm.
like, can I be a therapist just without studying psychology ever?
Definitely a very big no. There's a very big perception. Okay, I am. You must have heard people calling their friends who listen to them
Yeah.
their unpaid therapists. Yeah, because they have that perspective that it's only about listening. I can just sit and I can listen to my friend in therapy. Done. It's over. But that's not the case. Just being a good listener does not make you a therapist. And see, there are so many different credentials you have to get. You have to get a bachelor's, you have to get a master's, you have to do a lot of different internships, compulsory internships in your curriculum as well. And that's for a reason, because you cannot just you can be empathetic, I can be empathetic, but how I am being a good listener, how my training is, how I am trained in different internships, how I have learned about different approaches in therapy. Just sitting here, if I am just an individual who haven't studied psychology, and I know I am a good listener, I am empathetic, I have had a conversation with a person and I got to know about, okay, this person thinks very negatively. I don't know how to tell that person or guide that person properly. I can just say, yeah, negatively mat soch, don't think negative, and positive soch sab sahi hoga. It is easier said than done, to be
Yeah,
honest. And
definitely.
the process is in that space, the process is like that, that you are trained rigorously for it. You are trained rigorously to be there for the person, to be there and apply everything that you have learned for the well-being of a person. There's one more thing. It's just not about, it's just not a simple process has been provided to us and we have to apply it to every client that we get. No, that's not true. We have to tailor the things we have learned, the approaches that we have learned, everything that we have learned from for I think 5 to 7 years of education. We have to, tailor it for every different client, and that is very crucial and that is very important, and that definitely comes from training. So if I have just completed my masters, and I'm also still learning about therapy. I'm just going around and observing therapists, how they do things and all those things. Before we get into the field as a therapist, if I am getting into the field where I'm taking clients and taking proper sessions, before that I am giving pro bono therapy sessions where I'm
Yeah.
working with a supervisor who is trained for n number of years, who knows about therapy and who can guide me to start giving therapy. And why are these steps important? Because it is just not about sitting and listening to your friends. The training
Hmm.
needs to be there so that you can apply things better. Sometimes listening cannot be the only solution. Sometimes the person will expect, okay, I have told you the thing, now what? And the other
Yeah.
person may not be able to guide them better in that particular perspective. So that is why training is very essential in this particular space. Yeah.
So were you like always from childhood get go, were you always interested into something like this, or is this something that morphed once you like started developing your interest for something? Because I just sit and wonder and think that does how does a person realize that they want to become a full-time you know psychologist, or a person who wants to here, because I think it also gives you a lot of trauma. I don't know, you need to have that distinction for sure, like listening to so much
Hmm.
of negativity or the challenges and the struggles that people face definitely does something to the person who's listening to them all the time. So it's not an
Yes.
easy job definitely, but why would you choose to do that?
Okay, so the thing is, I was never introduced to psychology, so we have to go way back for this one. So I was never, I was never aware about psychology as well. So I come from Jammu and Kashmir, and when I was studying, I completed my education from Kendriya Vidyalaya, and there was not psychology subject basically. I was not aware that something like that even
Yeah.
exists. And I completed my 12th. I had to decide what to do. I had arts. I decided, okay, I got good numbers in this, let's go for it. So I decided to go for economics. Then I got admission in a college that provided course that had three major degrees. Okay, so economics I was sure about, and the other two were psychology and sociology. I was like, okay, I'm sure about economics, let's see where other two takes me. I just have to study, I'll do it, no worries. I got admission. I went to Bangalore and I started with the aim of. I remember the day, the first day of college. That professor came in and he was like, "Okay, tell me what is your goal after bachelor's? What do you
Hmm.
want to be?"
Yeah.
And my class, from the first bench to the last bench, I think maximum people said psychologist, some said sociologist. I was the only one. I want to be an economist. Okay, I was like that. And then the first class of psychology happened, and I realized what the subject was. I was not aware about the subject or even
Hmm.
mental health per se. I was not even aware about mental health also. that something
Hmm.
like this exists. I was also in that kind of perspective. Okay, घबराहट हो रही है, not
Hmm.
anxiety, but घबराहट हो रही है. So that is also there. And when the first class happened, I was really interested. I bought a Introduction to Psychology book by Morgan and King. It's a very, it's the basic constructive book for psychology. I got that book, I started reading, and I was like, okay, this is very fascinating, and this is really nice. And I always wanted to get in a profession where I could help others. I
Yeah.
had that thing when I was small. I wanted to do medical, but I was not sure about physics, so I was like, no, I don't want to risk it. And when I got to know more about this, it really interested me, because I thought, I realized that, this is a way in which I can help people, and this is a subject that I really love. And to be sure, I did a lot of internships to understand if this is something that I really want to do. And while doing internships, I realized, every time, in childhood, when mama used to say, go study, you always take out your favorite book and start studying that subject. That
Yeah.
tendency, I think, psychology became that favorite book for me. And that's how I realized, okay, this is something I want to do. Other than that, after that, when we talk about the burnout that comes with being the
Yeah.
psychologist, the burnout that psychologists have, it is, a very big perception that people think, the students who are, getting in the field of psychology, they think, okay, we will take 5 6 sessions a day and we will have good amount of income. But that's not the case, to be honest, because after 3 sessions also, you can get so tired, you can get so, drained out. You will not have energy to talk to people around you as well. And I when I remember the day when I took 3 sessions, in a day, it was so draining that I just wanted to lay down after that, and I just did not wanted to have conversation with anyone, be it my family or anyone for that matter.
Yeah.
Because it was very heavy. It was very, heavy for a person to listen to someone else's sorrow. It can get draining. That's completely there. But the thing is, we therapists also need therapists. We also have therapists
Hmm.
to whom we can go, to whom the space we can have that space for ourselves. In that particular space, we can have, conversations about our own journey, how things are, and how things are impacting us as well. Because it's not always it's not, it seems like a very smooth journey, but it's not very smooth, because you'll have a lot of trouble in between as a therapist as well. You'll have a lot of different emotional turmoils in your life. You have your own personal life with your professional life as a therapist. There is a sense of thinking about clients and working on them and seeing what will be, best for the client and all those things. And it can get very messy at times, and that's why we therapists need therapists as well, to sit with the person and make sure that, we are also doing well with our well-being, because we are
Yeah.
also human. And this particular thing that I have said, that we need therapists as well, I know people are gonna lash out. Why do you need a therapist? Go see your books. Your depression will be gone. You must have seen memes and something like that. So this conversation is also out there, but to help people understand, not to help, also just to give them clarity. I say one thing only. Do you think a cardiologist cannot have a heart disease? Can, right?
Hmm.
He or she can have heart disease as well, and that is
Yeah.
very crucial to understand. That is something
Definitely.
very
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
I think I completely agree with you on this one. And also, Sanjeevni, I feel that whatever, I think it goes back to the thing that you said initially, that, how much ever are you really good at decoding or just solving other people's problems, but to really have that understanding of yourself. People take
Yes.
so long to just identify what do they even like or don't like. I think that's partly the reason where people struggle to make decisions that are good or bad for them. And people getting stuck in jobs for 10 years, let's say, in fear of something, not recognizing what you really want is a factor. I think that goes into that self discovery conversation. But what I want to
Definitely.
ask you is, what can you teach me about psychology, or the audiences who listen to this, about psychology in whatever, however you've studied it professionally, that we can take
Hmm.
away and we can implement in our lives from like post hearing this conversation? are there some fundamental principles, or are there some easy to understand whatever hypothesis that we can apply in our lives and be better human beings, or just have happier lives? That's, I think that's a good goal to aim for.
Um, I think I would not want to go into very technicality here. I would not want to, make it very serious because I think
Well,
therapy
you are
would be
on
a
the most
better.
serious podcast.
Yes, that's the case there. But I would not, I think therapy would be a very good space for you to understand yourself.
Yeah.
But before that, it is very important to address your emotions as well. I use a very, I recently made a reel on this as well. I always use a very, I am a big fan of analogies, metaphors, to be honest. And I think metaphors explain things and concepts so beautifully that, words cannot. Words limit you, but the metaphor has that power to take the emotion in the other
Yeah.
space as well. And there's one thing, I think I was having a conversation with a friend about emotions and how I should process my emotions and why should I process my emotions. People feel like, emotions are something that they can neglect. Let's not, I don't want to feel it, I'll distract myself from the emotion. But at the end of the day, if you are distracting yourself also, the emotion is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just, out of your sight, but it is still there. And as I say, as a jar, whenever you're going to start to fill it, it's going to come to a top level and it's going to burst out. That is one thing about emotion. And why is it important to address your emotion? Is I'll give you one analogy. So, think of your emotions as the leftover dishes on your, the kitchen. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
I want to wash it. I want to wash it, but for that I'll have to be in kitchen and it's really hot. So I decided I'll just keep it and I'll do it some other time. I went back to my work. I did something else to distract myself from the dishes. After 2 3 days, I came back to dishes and I was like, okay, I need to complete the dishes to move further for my day. And now the food has hardened. Now it's
Mm.
gonna be much more difficult for me to wash that particular dish than before. I could have get out the food very easily just by washing it. But now the food has hardened. It's gonna take some effort from my end for me to just be there in the kitchen longer than I should have been. And
Yeah.
now I am cleaning the dish. And this is a very good analogy that helps you
Yeah, definitely.
understand how
Mm. Yeah.
dish is gonna be there. Dish is gonna be in the kitchen. You go anywhere you want to go, but someday you'll have to come back to that dish and clean it up.
So I think this is partly the reason why people struggle with unresolved trauma for so long in their lives. Like maybe a small incident when they were 12 years old, and they didn't address it at that point, but it keeps bugging them till they're 42, and they address it at some point in their therapy, and it costs them also, I think, a lot. But also not just the financial cost. I think the cost that it takes on their health, on their mind.
Health, yes.
And do you,
Yes.
Sanjeevni, can you tell me about this? That having how bad are the physiological you know impacts or effects of having a mental illness? So let's say if I am suffering from anxiety, which most of us just commonly associate that I'm anxious about this, I'm anxious about that, and how much of that is just my mind, and how much of it is detrimental to my body? Like how much am I suffering?
Okay, so we must have heard a lot about the mind body connection. That is
Hmm.
completely true, to be honest. Not even anxiety, if I'm talking about stress as well, the basic stress that we have maybe before an exam, before a big interview, before marriage, or all those, things we have in our life. You must see symptoms in your body. If I am stressed, I may be palpitating, I may be sweating, I may
Hmm.
have, that digestive problems. I may not feel like eating anything. That kind of symptoms can be there, and that are the physiological symptoms of stress. So it is
Hmm.
very important to understand that there is a mind body connection. How you are going to treat your mind will impact on your body, and how you are treating your body will impact your mind. the connection that is there. Why we talk about, you must have heard a lot of in hospitals generally as well, that holistic health is very important. Holistic health includes both your mind and body. And I think, as we were having conversation about, how people don't resolve the things that they have faced in their age of 12 and all those things, and it goes up to 42 years or 45, 50 years. The thing behind that is also the awareness that lacks. So basically, if you are here, you might be up for to go for a full body checkup, right? But would you go for a full mind checkup in India, if I'm talking about
I
it?
don't even know if there is a mental assessment resources present for the general public if someone is not, diagnosed with a problem. I don't do are they? That would be like new information for me. Are there? Can I get tests done at a mental health facility?
No, I don't think so. I am not aware about anything like that. So, see, the only thing for that is therapy. I think the people who are providing therapy is the only space. And one more thing, I that really bothers me is, why you must have observed that a lot of therapists have their own private practice rather than working for some place or
Okay.
hospitals, because
Hmm.
the wage that we get there is like very minimal. You'll see, people paying psychologists 15,000 per month. That's it, 15 to 20,000 per month, and they are expecting you to do the sessions. They want you to, do the paperwork and all those aspects, and it takes a lot on the psychologist as well. And that's why people prefer their own private practice over than working for some organizations. Mental health, I think, came in boom after the COVID period. When COVID hit the country, people were talking about mental health. I don't think there were a lot of conversations before that. And when the conversation started, you would see a lot of engineers and a lot of different people, coming up with startups of mental health, even though they have no specialist on board with them. And that
Hmm.
kind of created so much chaos, that kind of created so much, misinformation and all those aspects on in the country, that is still going on. So I recently saw a reel where a person made a reel that we will it was an organization basically. They made a reel that they will give you therapy for just 75 rupees. I
Hmm.
don't think that's even a minimum wage. I'm not even sure about the quality that they're going to provide.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I
yeah,
think.
and this
Hmm.
really bothers me, and I think this bothers a lot of people in the field as well. It's, as I said before, it's just not talking, and we have done a lot of rigorous training, and we deserve the amount that we are charging you, because we are also putting in the work in the process. And I think the point that you raised about, the mental health checkups for general public, I think that should be there, and people should be more aware about it. And I think, rather than any hospital setting or any privatized setting having this kind of setup, how mental health setup or how mental health awareness is going for the general population is more with the workshops that NGOs and organizations are providing, more
Yeah.
mental health, introductions that are going around in schools. I have seen a lot of schools, giving out workshops regarding mental health and psychology nowadays, and that is a step up, to be honest, because before that there was not a lot of conversation about psychology. And I think major concerns that really rise up does in the school time period, and having a counselor is very, very, very important in the school setting. I remember my school had a counselor, but I I am not even sure if students used to go to her or not, because we were not
Hmm.
aware what her job was also.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, she's just a person to talk to parents or something like that. We were not even
Hmm.
aware. And it is very, I think, now though there is a good rule kind of a thing that you need to have counselors in your school.
Yeah.
I'm really not sure if it is viable currently or not, but I heard that there is a rule that you need to have counselors. And in Delhi, if you see metropolitan cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, there are counselors in school, and not just one counselor. You will see at least 10 to 15 counselors per school, because obviously the ratio of the counselor to student needs to match. You cannot just
Yeah.
expect one counselor to be there and address the queries of all the students. So that is also one thing. I think there's so having this conversation makes me realize there's so much lack, and there are so many areas that we need to work on,
Yeah.
and I think we need to work on those areas. So yeah.
So what I definitely I think a starting step is having these conversations in the first place.
Hmm.
Maybe it reaches a wider audience, maybe it reaches the relevant stakeholders and they take some actions.
Definitely.
But what, as a psychologist on a personal level, have you learned, or what, as a psychologist at a personal level, you feel that you're grateful for psychology or learning art therapy or just having these experiences that you've had? uh, have allowed you to experience life in a more general sense? Like, has it made your life a net positive, and how, if it has?
Definitely. I think uh, I am so grateful to psychology. So I was a very aggressive person, very aggressive. When I talk about aggression, I would hurt myself. That kind of aggressive. I was anything you do, you'll irritate me in a second. You'll irritate me in just frictions of second. And
Hmm.
I never addressed those emotions in a very healthy manner. I was not even aware that this aggression is bad for me. I never
Yeah.
realized that because things were not. Uh, I was not that aware, to be honest. I was not aware about these kind of things. And when
Yeah.
I started learning about psychology, when I went to Bangalore and I started learning about psychology, there comes a whole spectrum of emotions that I got to understand about. I took anger management classes, and I got into spaces where I could understand more about emotions. I am more inclined towards understanding emotions because that is a certain area that I really lacked personally. And
Yeah.
when I got into that space and I got to know more about my anger, how it is okay to have anger, it is okay to have feeling that emotion of anger, but the aggression that comes from the anger is not really right, and I
Yeah.
can take that anger into a more positive and more healthy way of coping. And I have learned a lot of strategies, including breathing strategies and the paper strategies that I just told you before as well. And other than that, I think art gave me a very good perspective to express my emotions as well. I used to do art that represents my emotion. Like I used to just sit in a space with myself, and I used to give myself a prompt that I need to draw my aggression, I need to draw my anger, and I used to draw it. And I think it
Wow.
gave seeing it on the piece of paper really gave me perspective. I cannot just explain it with words,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah. No,
honest.
I definitely, I understand. I think that's the beauty of art therapy. Like, I haven't done this ever before, but now just sitting and thinking about it, how we use language as our only medium to express
Hmm,
is very limited. So
definitely.
mostly, you only can express as much as you know. So you only express your vocabulary. And maybe a
Hmm.
person is not as literate as most of us are, or maybe, they're not as expressive when it comes to expressing through language or communicating through that. But art is just such a natural way for a human being to express. I think if you give a toddler a crayon, and maybe they can express, so many things through that. And that's the same as we grow up. I think that's actually a very cool way to unwind also, and also to communicate in general.
Definitely, and I think people today are talking a lot about expressing themselves, being out there, and trying to understand what they are feeling and why they are feeling. And even if you are not taking a step for therapy, you think you want to try art first and then move to therapy. There are so many different art prompts. For example, you want to express write anger art prompt, and you will get a lot of prompts on internet as well. And there are a lot of different communities as well, where the community admin can really help you with whatever the thing that you want to express, basically. And when I talk about communities, communities plays a very crucial role, because I think a lot of people there are with one purpose, and they are there. If I'm talking about art community, so I have my own art community, that is therapeutic art making with Sanjeevani. It is not therapy, it is therapeutic art making. And there, I think I have around 200 people, and I just share some prompts and have conversation about the reflection and how a person can just get creative in their daily life as well.
Yeah.
Just not art, there is so many other expressive ways of getting creativity in your life. For example, there is dance movement therapy, there's music therapy, there's drama therapy, and so many more. There's poetry. You can definitely go around and experience all those mediums and see which one really fits you the well, which one it really interests you, and maybe then move on with that particular thing. So that can be a very good way of getting creative in your life, that creative aspect in your life as well, and expressing yourself in a very healthy manner also.
I love this energy that you have, and also the enthusiasm, I think, which kind of is very self-explanatory with your youth. But I would want to ask this: let's say if I give you the power of kind of building the platform for an India, which is not as psychologically compromised as it were, on basis of the resources or basis of in general just lack of awareness. So what's your ambition with if you were to lead this whole country into becoming more self-aware and more, what would be your plan? How would you start?
Oh, wow, that's a very big responsibility kind of a thing. um I think, as we discussed from the beginning as well, if I'm talking about my personal life experience as well and how I have observed things as well, I think school would be my first target for sure. School is the schools having those institutions, education institutions that we have in our country. I would really want to target those first because that is a building state. When we talk about a person's self esteem, how they are being heard, how they are being taken by other person really matters. And who is listening to them, if there are people that can help the person. If I am in a school where I know someone is bullying me, for instance, if I know that someone is calling me names, if I don't have that supportive teachers, if I don't have a counselor, or if I don't have that kind of community in my school, who would I go to and tell this to about?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I can go to my parents, but not everyone is blessed with good parents. And people may, some students may be like, okay, I'll just go on with it. After 12th, I'll just get out of the school and it will be over. But the kind of, uh, power it has to shape you really impacts how you are
Mhm.
shaped, how you are shaped for your future,
Yeah.
really impacts from the event you have in your childhood. And having that particular space really matters. So I remember recently I was called to give a workshop by a foundation. It was an NGO on bullying, and the kids had such good questions for me. They had really intense and really good questions. They wanted to learn about bullying. They wanted to learn about how they can address it. There were a lot of
Yeah.
question on what if my parents don't do this, what if my no teacher listens to me, what if my principal does not listen to me. These kind of questions were there. And if these questions are addressed in the first place, then we can go to another step, is what
Yeah.
I really feel. I think that would be the first thing for me. That would be the foremost thing that I would want to do. I'm not thinking about how things are going to go financially and all those aspects, definitely not. I'm just thinking, if I have to create something, if I have the power to do it, I think school would be the first thing for me to target, because that really shapes our whole identity, how we are, what kind of social environment we are. There's a proper debate on nature and nurture. And when we talk about nurture, I think after, in the initial time period of a child's life, there's parents and caregivers. And after that, I think it's the education system, it's the institution of education where we are going, and that is
Yeah.
impacting us, right? And I think if that environment is really supportive, non-judgment, and safe for the child, that can do wonders in the life of child, definitely. And if a person, so one thing is also there, then If a child in the age where they're going to school, they're exploring different subjects, they're trying to understand what they really like, what they want to be. If I want to be an artist, and if I go to my teacher or my parents and I show them, okay, see, this is the art that I've done, and they be like, okay, very good, go, 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 and they just throw it away, how would
Yeah.
it impact me? How would it? I would not want to take another risk in my life, even if I am a student who must be interested in art or music, and I tried to tell my parents or my teachers or people around me that I want to be an artist, and they discourage me, and they say like there's no future, blah blah blah. Do you think I'm gonna go out with music to do these people again? I
Hmm.
personally think I won't,
Yeah.
and that would discourage me a lot.
No, that's a very wise way to think about it, I feel, because I never thought about psychology and like schools in general, because I feel like that's too young for you to start thinking about psychology. But now that you say this, makes me wonder that, yeah, actually, when we talk about having, children's, the way they're brought up, the way their upbringing is, we say that that dictates almost all of their lives and the beliefs and the principles that they build. And we're not focusing on psychologically stable environments at school. I think that is number
Hmm,
one. Before even imparting
definitely.
education, can you make sure that this environment is psychologically stable or safe for a kid to even receive education?
Definitely. I think girls, if they put nail paints, they are shamed. If they have one even hair out, they are shamed. If their skirt is just above the knee length, they are shamed for it, Things like these goes in school. If a boy has, hair thoda sa upar, they are shamed for it. Girls and boys cannot sit together. There's no conversation about having good relationship. There's no conversation about toxicity that can comes from relationship. It is a time where kids are gonna go out and explore things, and we are not able to
Yeah.
accept it. The one very basic thing, if I'm talking about the education system, the reproductive chapter is always skipped,
Yeah.
and that is one thing why students are not even aware about things very intensely. Sex education is very important. So I
Yeah.
remember, there's kind of conversations that happens in school. In one period, they wanted to have, the teacher was from outside the school, and she came in and she wanted to have conversation about menstruation. Okay,
Yeah.
every girl from, for example, sixth grade girls were called first, then seventh grade, then eighth grade, they had that conversation and that space for themselves. But now if I'm think about it, why not guys? They also need to
Hmm.
understand the intensity and the kind of, the pain and all those new things that woman goes through during the time of menstruation. I think it is very important for the guys to understand that. And this can be the first step. Why
Yeah.
not have boys in the same room with girls to have this conversation, so that they
Hmm.
can know, and they can know better from their perspective the kind of questions girls have.
Yeah.
That can be a one way to start from, right? And I think it is very crucial, because in future, after that, guys go around, not every guy, I'm saying this, guys can go around and say like, you cannot bear minimal pain, this is just pain, why are you overreacting, and all those aspects. But you
Yeah.
really are not that aware, you're not. And it's not their fault, because they're not educated on how a menstruation cycle looks for a woman.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's very impactful what you're saying, and should definitely spark conversation around the fact that even though of after all this talk of new age modernized education and all this and that, are we able to even implement the small basic things that
Definitely.
people face on a day-to-day level? Are children educated on that? I think that's a definite conversation that needs to happen. But
Definitely.
I just feel like in general, with the scope of everything that we've discussed, this certainly tells me that you have a lot more depth and a lot more things to uncover as you go through your professional career in general. But art therapy is something that I will definitely explore more. And let's say anyone who listens to this show, anyone wants to try out art therapy, you know who the person that you have to go to. Thank you so much for taking the time out, Sanjeevani. Very interesting, very intriguing ideas you have, and I'm sure you'll do well on them.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. And I never realized I had all these things inside of me, to be honest. And as conversation went by, I was able to express so many things. And now, sitting here, I think there are three, four ideas going around in my mind, and maybe I'll try to work on those. Thank you so much, because it gave me a good space to introspect on myself as well. So, thank you.
Yeah, so maybe after all, there is scope for me to become a therapist. Yeah.
Only after you do your masters.
Well, we'll see about that. Thanks for doing this, Sanjeevani.
No, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. It was really great to talk to you.